GameCube remasters are all the rage right now because Metroid Prime Remastered dropped on the Nintendo Switch and blew everyone away. Beautiful graphics, redone textures, a brand new control scheme, and only $40 for this game. It's an absolute steal and one of my favorite games, not only of 2023 on the Nintendo Switch, but ever on the Nintendo Switch. It looks great, it plays great, it is a true testament to how GameCube games have really withstood the test of time. But that's not the only GameCube remaster that we got in the month of February for the Switch, because Tales of Symphonia Remastered also came out. Now, a lot of people seem to be hating on this game, and I thought, why? I love Tales of Symphonia. It's one of the best games on the GameCube. You gotta remember, the GameCube didn't have many traditional JRPGs on it. You had the Baten Kaitos series, which it's also getting a remaster from Bandai Namco, which is kind of random, but those games were based on card gameplay. And if you know anything about RGT, he's not a Nintendo YouTuber. He wants you to subscribe to the channel, and he does not play card-based games because he does not like them. Now, you had Skies of Arcadia Legends, which was fantastic, but then you also had Tales of Symphonia, which was more of an action-based RPG, but still had traditional RPG elements into it. And it was exclusive for the GameCube. Well, kind of. You see, it came out for the GameCube in North America, but there was a version that released for the PlayStation 2 that was exclusive to just Japan. Now, in the Japanese version of Tales of Symphonia for the PlayStation 2, there was two major things that were done to it. First and foremost, there were some cosmetic upgrades that were not available in the GameCube version of the game, and secondly, and probably more detrimental, was the fact that the game only ran at 30 frames per second on the PlayStation 2, whereas it ran at 60 frames per second on the GameCube. So obviously the GameCube was the better version, it was a superior version. If you're going to remaster something for the modern era, you're going to use the better version of the game, right? The one that ran at 60 frames per second, right? Now, for some reason, Bandai Namco in their infinite wisdom decided that a little additional content was more important than a consistently 60 frames per second frame rate for this game. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, RGT, hold on a second. This is an RPG game. Who cares? It's probably turn-based. You won't even notice it. But it's not. That would be an incorrect statement, because if you know anything about the Tales games, one of the things that draws people into the Tales games is the fact that it has real-time combat that plays almost like a fighting game, more so than a traditional JRPG. Let's talk about Tales of Symphonia as a game, though, what this game is, and I want to tell you guys a little story before we get into this. I've told this before, but when I first played Tales of Symphonia on the GameCube was because I went to Blockbuster with my buddy Rob. Rob had a really good day. He had partied a little bit too much, and as I'm checking out, I was renting something at Blockbuster, I hear this commotion behind me, and I'm like, please don't be Rob. And I turn around and I could definitely tell it was Rob. You heard plastics breaking and stuff like that. So now I'm trying to run distraction because I don't want the homie to get in trouble or go to jail. We end up getting out of there. He played it off. And when we got to the car, he was like, yo, I got Tales of Symphonia for the GameCube. I got it. And so what he did was he broke the case that it was in and definitely ganked it. But Blockbuster's not around anymore, but so it doesn't really matter. But we went to his house and played that game. Absolutely loved it. Tales of Symphonia is a game where you play as a character named Lloyd Irving. Now, Lloyd is basically like, you find out something happened to his moms and like his dad and stuff. His best friend Colette has to save the world because she's the chosen one, and then you end up assisting her on her adventure. But you have the Designs coming along who are basically enslaving humans and doing biological experiments on them. I'm going to keep it real storyline wise. It's very, very traditional, but I like the way it's told because it's very easily digestible. There's a way that you can look and see any sort of story related updates that you're getting, so it's very easily digestible. There's a lot of interesting twists and turns that happen within the story as well, things that you wouldn't really necessarily expect. I feel like some of them hit a bit harder than others, but storyline wise, it's fine. It's definitely the vehicle of progression. You know, you get into the gameplay, and that's where the game well, should be shining, because the gameplay of the game is so much fun. Like I said, this isn't a traditional combat system that's like turn-based or something like that. It's a real-time combat system, and when you have multiple characters going on at once, that's where the fun really begins, because of the fact that you could sort of tell them, you know, be aggressive, or be a healer, or defend, or attack the whole time. And then you have your character that you're playing as who has different abilities. You're constantly unlocking new moves that you can map to a button in order to do like these super moves that sort of take away from this 1 meter. I don't remember the name of the meter, but basically what that does is it allows you to do different moves. You also have a block button, and you have your standard button mashing moves. It's like hitting up will try to like raise enemies into the sky. The combat is like super in-depth, and as you progress throughout the game, you're constantly getting more and more stuff. You're getting weapon upgrades, you're unlocking new abilities, and of course you're unlocking new moves to use for all of the different characters. The combat in the game is the star. It's the best part of the game by far, and it still feels really good, except that it's at 30 frames per second now, and I can't quite understand why that is. Now, when you're actually playing, you know, with the combat, it doesn't feel all that bad. You know, the 30 frames per second, it doesn't really sort of negate the experience for me and make the experience bad and make it, you know, not enjoyable. But it's kind of like in the back of your mind, you're like, well, this would have been like even better running at 60 frames per second, because it would have been smoother. It would have been more, you know, a more accurate experience to the original release of the game on the GameCube. But none of that really matters in the grand scheme of things, because I think most people would be able to, they would just be like, okay, you know what, it runs at 30 frames per second. That sucks, but you still have a great game that did get a remaster. And a remaster is kind of contingent on performance and things like that. And holy hell, I don't know what happened here, but we somehow dropped the ball on performance. Realistically speaking, I don't think anything was reworked or redone. This is simply an upscaled PlayStation 2 game running on the Nintendo Switch, meaning that textures haven't improved. It's just a way, it's a vehicle for getting more people to play this game from the GameCube era, and that's fine. You know, if you would have just simply upscaled the GameCube version of the game, I think most people would have been satisfied with that. But once you have this 30 frames per second sort of looming on all versions of the game, that becomes really suspect. And then the Nintendo Switch version of the game somehow, some way, has performance issues, and it seems like it only happens when there's like a weather effect at first. But like, you go into the Tri-Eat Ruins, or I don't know how to say it, but you go into this ruins area and the whole thing is laggy when you're walking around, and it's like, this is like 20 frames per second. I'm not big into frames per second. You know, I'm not big into P and stuff like that. You know, 1080p, 4K, P. But the fact of the matter is, when there's noticeable drops in performance, you have to sit there and question, like, this is done very half-assed. Like, this was not done as a passion project. This was not done as something that, you know, it's doing it for the fans. It's simply doing it to re-release the game, to get it to a different audience who's never played it, for money. You're not doing any service to a great game by using an inferior version of the game and then adding in new problems that did not exist in either version of the original version of the game. But for some reason, the Nintendo Switch version of the game has all these problems, and it's a damn shame, because I love this game. This is a great video game. This is a great JRPG. The story is fun. The combat is phenomenal. You know, at the time, it looked great. The voice acting was solid. The music was really well done. The twists and turns that happen within the game were really well done as well. But it's a game that they didn't care enough to ensure that the gameplay experience was going to be as good as it was originally. It's a game that they just wanted to put out there and, you know, just take people's money. And it's hard for me to review this game, because part of me is having a blast to revisit this game. Part of me is like, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh yeah, that's so cool. Oh yeah, this was such a cool thing. And then part of me is like, you know, they really messed this up. They really took a great game and made it average. Maybe even a bit below average at times, because of all these performance issues that better looking games, you know, more high production games on the Nintendo Switch don't have these problems. Metroid Prime Remastered. And maybe that sort of hurt this game. You know, coming out so close alongside a Metroid Prime Remastered, which nobody knew that was going to happen in the same month, but you just compare the two remasters against each other. You know, look at the original source material of the GameCube version of Metroid Prime versus Metroid Prime Remastered. Look at the original source material of Tales of Symphonia versus the GameCube and compare it to the Nintendo Switch Remaster. Somehow, some way, the Switch Remaster runs worse than the original game. So I understand why everyone hates this game, because it's a disservice to Tales of Symphonia, which is a great video game. But part of me, you know, still loves this game. And I think if you could pick it up for 20 bucks, like it's worth playing. You know, maybe they could patch in some of the, obviously they're not going to patch in 60 frames per second. That's asking way too much. But if they could fix some of the overworld performance issues and just, you know, whenever there's a weather effect or when you're in a dungeon or something like that, like if they could fix some of those problems, I think it would make the game a bit more enjoyable, especially if you've never played it before. You know, it's a game that everyone should experience. It's one of my favorite RPGs of all time. But I just feel like the $40 asking point right now is just too much. You know, it's too much for a game. If they couldn't be half-assed enough to care about the quality of the game, you shouldn't be half-assed enough to buy the game at a full price. You know, wait for it to go on sale, especially if you've never played it before. If you have played it before, like, you'll just kind of be confused, but if you've never played it before, it's a game that you should experience. I genuinely enjoy this game. I enjoy all the characters. Maybe it's a bit of nostalgia talking, but I'm disappointed. I don't hate the game like a lot of people do, but I'm definitely disappointed in just the lack of effort that went into this. Those are my thoughts on Tales of Symphonia Remastered. I'm still gonna I haven't finished the game yet. I've just played it for like 10 hours or so, but it's like so noticeable, some of these issues, and it's just like, how did you let this happen? You know, if you're going to do a remaster, do it right. You know, put a little bit of effort into it. Put a little bit of elbow grease into it. It's like, I don't even know what you did for this remaster to dub it a remaster, except, you know, some of the characters have cleaner looking textures. It's upscaled. An emulator could have done that. And as always, guys, thank you for watching this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit the bell notification as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.